The Arctic wind howled like a hungry wolf, tearing across the endless white. It was a sound that could chill a person to the bone, a reminder that this land belonged to the elements, not to men. In the winter of 1931, the Yukon was a frozen wilderness where only the toughest survived. The snow lay deep, the rivers were locked in ice, and the sun barely crept above the horizon. Life here was a daily battle against cold and isolation. Into this brutal landscape came a stranger, Albert Johnson. He moved with purpose, his face hidden beneath layers of frostbitten cloth, his eyes scanning the horizon for threats or shelter. He arrived in Fort McPherson, silent and watchful, with a name as thin as the ice. No one knew where he came from, and he offered no stories to fill the silence. Johnson bought supplies with cash, avoided conversation, and vanished into the wild. He left behind only questions and a sense of unease that lingered in the cold air. He built a cabin on the Rat River, more fortress than home, dug into the bank, with gun ports in the walls. It was a place designed for defense, not comfort. Locals grew uneasy. This was not a man seeking community, but a man preparing for war. His presence was a challenge to the fragile peace of the North. He moved alone, always armed, a shadow in the snow. His footprints were the only sign he left behind, quickly swallowed by the wind. The wilderness magnified his every action. Other trappers watched him, wary and suspicious. Rumors began to swirl, growing with each retelling. Johnson wanted only solitude, and he was willing to defend it at any cost. He kept to himself, but his isolation was a statement. He trusted no one. His presence was a threat, a ghostly figure who seemed to belong more to the wild than to any human world. He became a legend before anyone truly knew him. The Arctic is a place where you rely on neighbors, but Johnson wanted none. He stood apart, a solitary figure in a land that demanded cooperation. He was a mystery, and the land itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would come next. Every eye watched, every ear listened for the first sign of trouble. In the silence of the North, trouble was brewing. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm that was about to break within the hearts of men. Whispers spread through the frozen North. Rumors that Johnson was sabotaging trap lines, sneaking through the woods at night, and tampering with the very tools that meant life or death for the trappers. Traps were found sprung, sometimes hanging from tree branches as if to taunt their owners, and the sense of unease grew with every discovery. For the trappers, this was more than mischief. It was sabotage of their very survival in a land where every meal was hard-won. Complaints and fearful whispers soon reached the Mounties. Constable Alfred King, determined to restore order, decided to investigate these troubling reports himself. On Christmas Day, King and a partner mushed their dog sled through biting winds to Johnson's isolated cabin, expecting a simple conversation to clear the air. They knocked on the weathered door. There was only silence. Smoke curled from the chimney, but no one answered their call. Johnson refused to speak or show himself, remaining a shadow behind frosted glass. With no response, the officers left, uneasy, planning to return with a warrant and more men. Days later, King returned with backup, the wind howling around them. Again, only silence greeted their arrival. As they tried to force the door, a sudden gunshot shattered the stillness. King was hit, collapsing into the deep snow, blood staining the white. The standoff had turned violent, the wilderness echoing with tension and fear. The North had shown its teeth, and in that moment, the legend of the mad trapper was born, etched into the icy wind. The Mounties retreated, wounded and shaken, the weight of the wilderness pressing in on them. The Arctic was no longer just cold. It had become a place of danger, mystery, and legend. The shooting of Constable King changed everything. The wilderness, once silent and still, now echoed with tension and fear. The Mounties knew they faced a cunning and dangerous adversary. The Mounties returned, this time with a posse and a plan. They gathered every available man, determined to bring Johnson to justice, no matter the cost. They surrounded Johnson's cabin, exchanging gunfire in the bitter cold. Bullets tore through the icy air, splintering wood and shattering the silence. Johnson's fortress was nearly impregnable, low, hidden, with gun ports for defense. Every approach was covered, and the snow muffled the Mounties' movements. Days passed. The temperature dropped. The Mounties grew desperate. The blizzard howled outside, and hope began to fade as the siege dragged on. They tried dynamite, blasting the cabin apart in a final, desperate attempt to end the standoff. But Johnson survived, emerging from a foxhole beneath the ruins and firing back. He seemed to vanish and reappear like a phantom. The posse was stunned. He seemed indestructible. No one could believe he was still alive, let alone fighting back. Supplies and morale ran low. Another man was wounded. Exhaustion and fear crept in as the men realized the cost of this pursuit. The Mounties retreated again, leaving Johnson standing alone amid the wreckage. The snow fell quietly, covering the scars of battle. The legend grew. The mad trapper could not be killed. His story spread across the north, whispered by firelight. The wilderness had a new ghost, and the chase was far from over. The land itself seemed to protect him. The Mounties regrouped, determined to end the standoff. The hunt was on, and they would not rest until Johnson was found. With his cabin destroyed, Johnson vanished into the Richardson Mountains. The Mounties believed he was doomed, but Johnson was a master of survival. He moved at night, covered his tracks, and used the land to his advantage. He walked backwards in his own footprints, followed caribou herds, and scaled cliffs the Mounties couldn't. The posse, led by Inspector Eames, struggled through snow blindness, frostbite, and exhaustion. Johnson left behind only small campsites and baffling trails. He survived on little food, always one step ahead. For weeks, the chase continued, hundreds of miles through frozen hell. Johnson turned the wilderness into his ally, the Mounties into his prey. They hunted a man, but it felt like chasing a spirit. The Arctic had never seen anything like him. The chase led to the staircase, a sheer wall of ice and rock. The Mounties thought they had Johnson cornered. No one could climb it in winter. But Johnson did the impossible, chipping handholds into the ice and scaling the cliff with a hand axe. The posse watched in disbelief as he vanished over the summit into the Yukon. He had crossed a mountain range in winter, leaving his pursuers far behind. The legend grew. He was more than a criminal. He was a force of nature. The Mounties were forced to take a 10-day detour. Johnson gained precious time, moving freely once more. But the Mounties weren't giving up. They brought in a new weapon, one that would change the hunt forever. The wilderness was about to meet technology. The manhunt became a national obsession. Newspapers followed every twist. The Mounties needed an edge. Enter Wap May, legendary bush pilot. His ski-equipped plane soared above the mountains, searching for Johnson's trail. From the air, May spotted fresh tracks on the Eagle River. Johnson was making a desperate push for the Alaskan border. May didn't confront him. Instead, he guided the ground posse to intercept. The airplane changed everything. Johnson's greatest ally, the wilderness, was no longer safe. He could run, but he could no longer hide. The net was closing in. The final confrontation was near. The chase was about to end. The Arctic's ghost was running out of time. Guided by Wap May, the Mounties raced to cut Johnson off. After 48 days and 150 miles, they cornered him on the frozen Eagle River. Johnson, exhausted but defiant, dug in for a last stand. There would be no surrender. The shootout was brutal. Johnson's first shot killed Constable Millen. The posse, enraged, unleashed a hail of gunfire. Johnson was hit, but kept fighting until he could fight no more. Silence fell over the river. The mad trapper of Rat River lay still in the snow. The epic manhunt was over. The Arctic had claimed its legend. The North was quiet once more. The posse approached Johnson's body, tough, defiant even in death. He'd been hit multiple times, but his legend was intact. The Mounties had lost men, but Johnson had paid the ultimate price. His possessions deepened the mystery. Cash, gold fillings, a compass, but no ID. Why would a man with so much money live in isolation? Where did he come from? His body was lean, scarred, and worn by hardship. He'd survived on almost nothing, driven by sheer will. The Mounties took fingerprints and photos, but no matches were found. Albert Johnson was an alias, a ghost name for a ghost man. He was buried in Aklavik, his grave marked simply. The legend was just beginning. For decades, the mad trapper's true identity remained a mystery. Theories abounded. Draft dodger, gangster, prospector, but every lead went cold. In 2007, his body was exhumed for DNA testing. The results were tantalizing. He was likely Scandinavian, not North American. Isotope analysis suggested a childhood in the American Midwest. Science narrowed the search, but still no name. Who was he? What drove him to the Arctic, to war with the world? He pushed the limits of human endurance, a survival legend. His secrets remain buried in the frozen north. The mad trapper of Rat River, forever a ghost in the Arctic wild.